Find quite an incredible Gemara in Brachas Daf Yud Tes Aleph, Yud Tes and Aleph. I'm sorry. The Gemara there is talking about the story of Choni Amagel. Choni Amagel. Actually, not the story, but it's just a description of who Choni Amagel was, what he was all about. And the Gemara there is also discussing the 24 places where you put somebody in Nidui, where there's a ban, a rabbinic ban is placed on a person for acting with audacity against the Chachamim or against, as Choni was against Hashem. And the Gemara says that if Choni wasn't who he was, then he should have been put in Nidui, right? He should have been put in Nidui. We know the story of Choni Amagel. There was no rain, so Choni Amagel, Magel means a circle. He drew a circle around himself, and he said, "God, I'm not getting out of this circle until you starts to rain." And the rain became very light, and then very hard. And Choni said, "No, this is not what I want. This is not what I want." Finally, it came a Gishri Bracha, and Choni was happy. But the Gemara here points out that if Choni wasn't who he was, this would have been a tremendous audacity. It would be a tremendous audacity to speak to God in such a way, to demand that he changes his actions, demand that he brings rain in a certain manner. And Rashi points out something very interesting here about Choni's relationship with God, his relationship with Hashem, with the Borei Olam. Yeah. On one hand, right, the Gemara says, if you weren't Choni, then we should have put you in Nidui. What Rashi says, Choni? Choni was a great person. He was famous for his Torah and for his greatness. He was a person of great dignity, importance, and stature. And when a person like that acts in a certain way, it's taken a different manner. It's taken a different light. Right? It's not considered to be necessary to be an audacity, because it's understood that such an important person is his leadership and his dignity and his honor. He's allowed to ask for things that other people are not allowed to ask for. But then afterwards, after the Gemara speaks about how important Choni was, that his act wasn't considered audacity because it was so important. Yeah. So the Gemara then says another point. Yeah. Not only was he important, but he was mischate lifnei hamakom. He was mischate lifnei hamakom. Right? What does it mean to mischate lifnei hamakom? Rashi points out. He was literally chayte. He was chayte in front of Hashem. He was toreach the Borei Olam to a very, very great extent by demanding that he acts in a certain way. And Rashi points out that this is something that a father will do for his son. Right? A father will do it for his son. A father will act towards his son in a way, something which might be considered a chutzpah audacity for somebody to ask, is less of a audacity, or maybe not an audacity at all, for his son. And in that light, right? So Shimon ben Shetach said to Choni Amagel, right, that we should really put you in Nidui if you were not Choni, right? But what can we do? You're mischate l'fnei hamokam, but also l'tzoncha kmo ben shemischate l'fnei av. Right? So Choni had a dual Choni. Choni had a dual relationship. On one hand, he was a very, very important person, and a very, very important person is allowed to take certain liberties. And on the other hand, it was like a son. It was like a child. And a person who's like a son or like a child is also allowed to take certain liberties. So there's two very, very important things we could take out of this Gemara. First of all of us who are not necessarily like a child and not necessarily like at that level of importance, we have to be very, very careful how we speak to Hashem, how we speak to God. We have to be careful to speak with the greatest dignity, the greatest honor, and to choose our words very carefully when we speak to God. We have to be in awe that we're opening our mouth in front of God. Right? But at the same time, we have to know that dual relationships exist. The more we make ourselves like children to Hashem, and the more we elevate ourselves through Torah, through mitzvahs, through acting with honor and glory in front of Hashem, so the more our relationship changes with Hashem. We are allowed to talk to Hashem vis-a-vis how our relationship is with Him and how we act towards Him. That's how He'll act towards us. And now we reach this greatest height with Choni Amagel. Choni Amagel did something of the greatest audacity. If it wasn't for he was Choni, he would have been put in Nidor. Right? He demanded that God brings rain to Jewish people, and not only that, first he said the first time it wasn't right, second time was right. It was only the third time that he acted in such a way. And the reason for that is because his special relationship with Hashem. He had a relationship of a dignity and at the same time a relationship with Hashem. And these two aspects, yeah, acting with dignity, acting with sneas, acting with cover, with honor in front of God and glory. This is one aspect of our relationship. Right? The Jewish people are an Am Segula. We're a nation of princes. Right? We're a nation of princes, like, as the Mishnah in Shabbos says. It says, Kol Yisrael b'nei Malachim. Every single Jew is a child of right? We're princes and we have a very elevated relationship with God. On the other hand, that we're children, and a child can get away with things that other people can't. So on one hand, we have to have our greatest awe and dignity, right, and kibbut aveim, talking to the Bar Olam. On the other hand, we have to know that the more we make ourselves like children, and the more we elevate ourselves with the honor of the Jewish people, that b'nei malachim, the more we make ourselves b'nei malachim, and the more we make ourselves children, so the more we can ask of Hashem. The more we can ask him and speak to him as a dignity and speak to him as a child. And in that way, our tefillahs will be answered. Hashem should have the greatest mercy on us, the greatest rachmim, and understand that we're our children, and understand that we're his dignities, and treat us as of such. But the ball is in our court. It starts with us. The more we do that, the more we make ourselves like that, the more Hashem will respond, just as he responded to Choni Yaman. Hashem should help all of us reach this elevated level. Amen. Kain. T.A.